Well, good morning. My name is Tom Kearns, and I'm this year's annual giving campaign chairman, Give to Thrive, in case you haven't seen the signs yet. And I'm a golfer, and I'll have to tell you, I usually get nervous over a 3-foot putt, but this takes it to a new level. So here we find ourselves in the Halloween season. And I have to tell you that I'm not that big a believer in ghosts and goblins and evil spirits and zombies. Although I might have to take that back about the zombies, because I do believe the Carolina Panthers have had a few in the front office, and sometimes they have some playing for them. So I might believe in them a little bit. But on the whole, I'm not a big believer in that. But I have to admit to you that recently I have been visited by a ghost, a spirit. Now, it's not the kind of ghost that appeared to Ebenezer Scrooge, you know, the ghosts of Christmas past and present and future. It wasn't Casper the ghost or the Ghostbusters. It wasn't even the Holy Ghost. None of them chose to come and visit me. It was the spirit. It was the memory of Carter Lofton. So many of you here knew Carter and loved him and respected him just like I did. But there's probably just as many of you here that did not know Carter. So I'd like to tell you just a little bit about him. Carter was our deacon here for 14 years, from 1996 until his unfortunate passing in 2010. By profession, by vocation, Carter was a dentist. But I think his avocation, what he really loved doing and being, was a servant leader here at Holy Comforter in the role he had as our deacon. And now this is just my opinion, but I think Carter taught us more about how to be an outreach church than any leader we've ever had here before. And what I mean by that is that for 14 years, Carter continued to ask us to say yes to giving of our time and our talent and our treasures so that we could support outreach ministries. Things like Loaves and Fishes, which is now called Nourish Up, Stephen Ministry, Room in the Inn, Men's Shelter, which I think now is called Roof Above. Those types of outreach ministries he had a passion for. There's something else you ought to know about Carter. He was the biggest yes man that I have ever met. Now, not the kind of yes man you might be thinking about. Nope. Carter Lofton was the kind of man you had to say yes to. For instance, if he asked you to come and spend the night at Room in the Inn, which, by the way, is not the most highly sought-after job we have as a volunteer here, you still said yes because you did not want to disappoint Carter Lofton. If he asked you to come and fill the trunk with food for some of our Loaves and Fishes clients on some afternoon, and it didn't really suit your schedule, you know what you did? You adjusted your schedule because you wanted to say yes to Carter Lofton. He was a dynamo. He was someone that had this incredible passion that in a vortex that just sucked you in. You could not help but say yes to him. He was a human tidal wave of yes, and you had no choice but to ride that wave. And his legacy still lives today, as many of us are still involved in some of those things, some of those ministries that he held dear to his heart. We still say yes to many of those. Fast forward to May of this year, I said yes again to being the annual giving campaign chairman for the 4th time. You would think by the 3rd time I would have learned my lesson, but obviously not. And I remember going home that Sunday afternoon after we had our meetings, and I said yes again. And walking in the house, and I was so upset, I was so mad that I literally kicked the dog. And Jane and I don't even own a dog. I was the dog. And so I kicked myself up and down the steps all afternoon thinking, how stupid do you have to be to say yes to doing this all over again? And so I went from this place of a basic self-loathing to over here saying, you know what, you big dummy, you just said yes to this again. You have no energy for this, so what are you going to do now? And so I'll tell you what I did now. I threw myself a really nice big pity party for several weeks. Now, I'm sure all of you have had a pity party before every once in a while, but I can assure you, I can promise you that my pity party was way bigger and better than your pity party. And that's when Carter Lofton came to my party. I can't really tell you where and when and how, but over the course of several weeks, his memory, just his passion, his commitment, the times I'd said yes to him, those memories began to come back to me. And eventually, just his spirit came. You know, sometimes you have that small little voice that talks to your head and your heart and your soul and your spirit. Carter didn't use a small little voice. He said, Tom, it is time for you to say yes. It is time for you to say yes again and to mean it this time. And just like that, Carter Lofton turned off the lights of my pity party. And man, am I glad he did. Because over the last couple of months, I have had the chance to make some new friendships in this doing this campaign and working with some amazingly talented people. And because I get a chance to talk on this microphone for a few minutes, I'm going to call a couple of amazing people out right now. I'm going to start with this group of people right up here, our choir and our choir director. You talk about people that are incredibly talented, that give of their time and their immense talents and their financial gifts to our church. These folks right up here, they are role models for us. But you know what? Through this campaign, I've seen that there are a lot of role models right out here too. There are a lot of people out here that have amazing talents, some incredibly awesome people. I'm going to call a couple of you out too. It's Mark Becker and Tom Cook. They helped our committee create a video about how we thrive, how we are thriving here at Holy Comforter. And if you haven't had a chance to see that video yet, we printed the QR code right here in the Sunday Spirit for you to look at. If you haven't seen that, hit that with your cell phone later on today. It is the essence of who we are. And Carter Lofton has his fingerprints all over that video. That's why I asked for his picture to be published this morning in our bulletin. There's Vicki Bott and her data team of Alan Amos and Katie Layton that help our committee understand who you are, where you are, and how we can reach you with our message. There's my wife, Jane, and Kim Rockus, along with the children of this church. I'm going to say that again. Even the children of our church have been involved in this campaign. And together they have created this really cool thank you note that you get when you give to this campaign and to this church. There's the Gallagher family, Bish, Judy, Deb, Jim, along with John Wood and volunteers from the Brotherhood of Biscuits that created an amazing kickoff breakfast for us. I hope some of you were able to attend that breakfast because it was spectacular. And last but not least, our committee's MVP, and I would say probably one of the MVPs of this entire church, is Kurt Hibbets. You talk about a man that gives his time and his talent and his treasures to this church unselfishly. Kurt Hibbets is a role model for all of us. Carter Lofton was a role model. And I often wonder what he would be saying this morning if he was standing here instead of me. I think Carter Lofton would tell us in this hour of change and transition that our church is going through, as well as outside these walls, the changes and transitions that are going on. I think Carter would point right over here to this humble little three-legged stool that you probably didn't even see was there. And I think he would say, you know, our church is a lot like that humble little three-legged stool. That stool has got a job to do. It's got a purpose. Its purpose is to support and hold up whatever sits on it. But it can't do its job if it doesn't have three legs of support. Just like our church can't serve its purpose if each and every one of us does not give of our time and our talents and our financial treasures. So what would Carter say our purpose is as a church? You know, I think Carter would challenge us just to look around. Take a look around. What a beautiful place we are sitting in this morning. Take a look up here at the altar. Carter spent a lot of time up there. And I think he'd say, what a wonderful place to take communion. What a wonderful place for two people to get married and start a life together. Over here, how about this? This is where we christen our children and our grandchildren. How cool is that? This is where you get to sit on Sunday mornings and listen to someone way more qualified than me talk about the Word of God and how it affects your life every day. This is where people come that have nothing. They have no food. They have no home. And on a cold Saturday night, they come to us at Room in the Inn, and we give them safe shelter and something warm to eat. For that night, we are their island in the stream. This is where people come that just need a couple of sacks of groceries because their SNAP benefits had been cut. Or they've missed a paycheck. They just need some little help to feed their families. And don't all of us just want to feed our families? Right up here in Henry Hall, this is where we have Darrow Owens, community dinners. At Christmas time, this is where we build gingerbread houses. Yum. This is where we have Sunday school, weekday school, vacation Bible school. This is where we teach our neighbors that may have a little trouble with English. This is where we teach them and help them. This is where we help our scouts become upstanding citizens someday. And then finally, this is where you come for a dignified funeral. And if you choose to be interred on the other side of this wall in a beautiful memorial garden so that your family and friends can come and visit you whenever they want to. You see, that's what I think Carter Lofton would say our purpose is. You see, I think Carter had a secret for all those 14 years. I think Carter knew that by getting us to say yes continually, of giving of our time and our talent and our treasures to this church so that we could support these outgoing ministries, that while those people would benefit, we would benefit just as much or more as a church community that would come together as individuals that would have a closer walk with God. So what would Carter Lofton say to us in this hour of change and transition? I'll tell you what I think he'd say. I think he'd say, you go, Holy Comforter. You go thrive. But remember, you must give to thrive. Remember, it's time to say yes. It's time to say yes again.